They said falling in love at a hospital was like signing your own resignation letter. I guess they were right, because the night I realized I wanted him, I also realized I was willing to torch everything I had worked for. I was 28, still wearing the weight of student loans like shackles on my ankles, drowning in 60-hour shifts and the smell of antiseptic. Yet somehow, in that sterile world of clipped voices and gleaming scalpels, I had managed to find the one thing that could undo me completely: him. Dr. Nathaniel Hart, chief of surgery. A man so cold he could have been carved from the marble pillars outside the hospital entrance. His voice was clipped, precise, lethal when aimed at me. And still, every time he walked into the OR, my chest betrayed me with the sharp sting of admiration, my pulse sinking with the rhythm of his authority. I hated it, craved it, and somewhere along the line, I knew I was damned. It wasn't supposed to happen. He was the chief. I was a resident. That alone was enough to end a career. Add in the fact that we were two men in a conservative town in the Midwest, and suddenly this wasn't just unprofessional, it was dangerous. But love, I've learned, doesn't give a damn about rules. The first time I realized he saw me, really saw me, was after a grueling 12-hour shift. I had botched a charting note and nearly sent a patient to the wrong imaging room. He found me in the corridor, jaw tight, voice laced with frost. "Dr. Reed, incompetence is not an option here. If you can't handle the basics, you won't last another week." I should have shrunk back. Instead, I found myself staring straight into those storm-gray eyes, something in me refusing to cower. "I'm not incompetent," I said, my throat dry but steady. "I'm exhausted, but I'll learn. You'll see." For a moment, just a flicker, his gaze softened. Then it was gone like a shutter snapping shut. But I had caught it, that split-second crack in his armor. And God help me, I wanted to see it again. Over the weeks that followed, I found myself noticing things I shouldn't. The way he lingered at the end of rounds, watching me longer than necessary. The rare, almost imperceptible curve of his lips when I cracked a dark joke in the cafeteria. The nights he stayed late in the OR, surgical mask hanging loose, his posture collapsing in the solitude no one else was supposed to witness. I shouldn't have cared. I shouldn't have watched. But I did. And when our hands brushed over a chart one night, his skin cool and firm against mine, something inside me split open. I was reckless after that, maybe even stupid. I started seeking him out, inventing reasons to consult him, pretending I didn't notice the way our conversations grew sharper, more personal, like sparks striking in the dark. He never gave me anything solid, never a word, never a confession. But there was a heat there, hidden in the silence between us. And then came the night that changed everything. It was nearly midnight when I found him in the empty staff lounge, tie loosened, eyes rimmed with fatigue. The hospital had gone quiet, the usual chaos dimmed to a low hum. He was alone, a glass of water trembling slightly in his hand. "You should be home," I said, my voice softer than I intended. His eyes lifted, weary but piercing. "So should you." We stared at each other, the silence stretching too long, too charged. My heart hammered, but for once I didn't back away. "I can't stop thinking about you," I blurted, the words tumbling out raw, unpolished, unforgivable. The glass in his hand froze mid-air. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his cheek. For a moment I thought he'd throw me out, report me, end everything right there. But instead, he set the glass down and closed the distance between us in 2 long strides. "Do you have any idea what you're risking?" he whispered, his breath hot, his voice trembling with anger, or maybe something else. "Yes," I said, and then, before he could pull away, I kissed him. It was reckless, desperate, like pressing a match to gasoline. His lips were firm at first, unyielding. Then suddenly he gave in, clutching the back of my neck with a force that left me breathless. The world tilted, collapsed, and for one fleeting second, none of it mattered. Not the hospital, not the rules, not the world outside. Just him. Just us. When he pulled back, his forehead pressed against mine, his breath ragged. "You're out of your mind," he murmured. "Maybe," I whispered, "but I'm not wrong. That night was the beginning of the end. Or maybe the beginning of everything. Because love, when it blooms in a place like this, doesn't stay hidden for long." And the closer we got, the more I began to realize. It wasn't just my career on the line, it was his too. But the truth? I would have burned it all to ash just to keep feeling the way I did when his hand brushed mine in a crowded hallway. And when the fateful surgery arrived, the one that would test not just our skill but the fragile, dangerous bond between us, I understood that love wasn't my weakness. It was my only chance at survival. Secrets are easy to keep in theory, but inside a hospital, secrets bleed. They leak through glances, linger in doorways, and cling to the air like disinfectant. After that first kiss, I swore I'd keep my head down, pretend it never happened, focus on work, bury my desire beneath the mountain of patience and protocols. But my heart was a traitor. Every time Chief Hart walked into a room, it thundered against my ribs. Every time his hand brushed a file I held, heat coursed through me like a fever I couldn't shake. He avoided me at first, and I hated him for it. Rounds became curt, his instructions clipped, his eyes never meeting mine for longer than necessary. And yet, I could feel the storm underneath his composure, the same storm that raged inside me. One night, 2 weeks after that kiss, I caught him in the stairwell. We weren't supposed to be alone together. Not here, not with walls that carried every echo. But there he was, standing in the dim light, hands gripping the railing like he was holding himself back from something catastrophic. "You're reckless," he said the moment I stepped inside. "And you're a coward," I shot back. His eyes snapped to mine, and for the first time, I saw the fire he had been fighting. His jaw tightened, his voice low and harsh. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I do," I whispered, stepping closer, my pulse hammering. "And I still want you." His hand slammed against the wall beside me, the sound sharp, dangerous. But when he leaned in, when his breath ghosted over my lips, his voice cracked like a confession. "So do I." The kiss that followed was different, rougher, angrier. His control shattered, mine never existed to begin with. We were reckless with time, with the risk of footsteps on the stairs. When we finally pulled apart, I could see it written all over his face. This wasn't something we could bury anymore. But the problem with love built in the shadows is that someone always notices. It started small, nurses glancing too long when they saw us leave the same wing together. Colleagues raising eyebrows when Hart defended me during rounds instead of tearing me apart like usual. The hospital thrived on gossip, and whispers moved faster than the elevators. Then came the night Dr. Levine cornered me in the locker room. He was a third-year resident, sharp-tongued and eager to climb, the kind of man who could sniff out weakness like blood in the water. "Careful, Reed," he said, smirking as he shoved his bag into a locker. "Getting special treatment from the chief might make people think you're special to him." I froze, my pulse spiking. "I don't know what you're talking about." His laugh was low, cruel. "Sure you don't. Just remember, secrets don't stay buried here. Not for long." I left before he could see the panic in my eyes. That night, I found Hart in his office, the door shut, the blinds drawn. He was reviewing scans, his face illuminated by the glow of the computer screen. But when I walked in, he looked up, and I saw the exhaustion there, the weight of carrying something that could ruin us both. "They're starting to notice," I said quietly. His hand stilled on the mouse. For a long time he said nothing, Then he leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. Then we need to be smarter. No more late nights in stairwells. No more slips. I hated the way he said it, like what we had was a mistake. My throat tightened, but I nodded anyway. For weeks, we lived like ghosts, passing each other in hallways, speaking only in clipped professional tones, pretending we were nothing. But at night, when the hospital emptied and silence fell, he'd find me. Sometimes it was in the on-call room, sometimes the darkened, or always fleeting, always dangerous. Those stolen hours became my lifeline, his hands against mine, his lips pressing the fear out of me, the quiet way he whispered my name when no one else could hear it. It was love, raw and secret, but it was also a noose tightening with every passing day. Then came the case that would change everything. A patient arrived late one night, a teenager, car accident, bleeding out fast. The trauma team scrambled, alarms blaring. I was pulled into the or alongside Hart. The surgery was brutal. Hours of clamped vessels, suction, blood flooding the sterile field. Hart was a machine, his voice steady, his hands precise, commanding the room with a calm that bordered on inhuman. I matched his pace, adrenaline pushing me past exhaustion. For a while, it was just us, moving in sync, as if our bodies knew each other even here. But then the patient's vitals crashed. Chaos erupted, nurses shouting, machines beeping, sweat dripping down my spine. My hands faltered, panic clawing at my throat. Focus, read. Hart barked, his eyes burning into mine. Something in his voice snapped me back. I steadied, adjusted, did exactly what he told me. And together, somehow, we pulled the boy back. When the monitor steadied, when the blood loss slowed, a wave of relief swept the room. Hours later, when the patient was stable and the OR finally emptied, Hart caught my arm before I could leave. His eyes softened in a way I had never seen in public. "You saved him tonight." "No," I said, my voice shaking. "We did." For a moment the world disappeared. Just his hand on my arm, his gaze locked with mine. It was too much, too dangerous, and yet neither of us pulled away. But outside the OR, in the shadows of the hallway, I saw Dr. Levine watching. His eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a knowing smile. And in that instant, I knew our secret was no longer ours. Rumors spread through hospitals faster than infections. One stray glance, one whispered word, and by morning the entire staff was buzzing with speculation. It started subtly, conversations that went quiet when I walked into the room, sideways glances exchanged between residents, a nurse asking a little too casually why I always seemed to be on Hart's cases. I tried to ignore it, bury myself in charts and long nights, but the whispers clung to me like a second skin. Hart pretended not to notice, his face as cold and composed as ever, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw locked tighter every day. The distance between us widened, not by choice, but by necessity. One evening, after rounds, I found him in the cafeteria. The room was nearly empty, the hum of vending machines filling the silence. He stood by the window, his reflection a dark silhouette against the glowing city outside. "They know," I said quietly, my voice cracking despite my effort to steady it. He didn't turn. His hands were buried in his pockets, his posture rigid. "They suspect. That's different." "It won't be for long," I pressed. My chest tightened, the words spilling before I could stop them. "Are we just going to pretend until they tear us apart?" Finally, he faced me, his eyes sharp but burning with something rawer beneath. "Do you think I don't want you? Do you think it doesn't kill me every time I have to look through you like you're just another resident?" "Then stop pretending," I whispered. He closed the distance between us in 3 steps, his hand gripping the back of a chair like he needed it to stay grounded. "If this comes out, Reed, it's not just your career. It's mine." Everything I've built, everything I've fought for, it ends. I swallowed hard, my voice barely audible. So what am I to you? A risk? A mistake? His eyes flickered with pain, and for a heartbeat, I thought he might actually say it. Say what we both already knew. But then his mask slipped back into place and he turned away. You're someone I can't afford to lose. Which means I can't afford to have you. The words cut deeper than a scalpel. I left before he could see the tears brimming in my eyes. That night, I lay awake in the on-call room, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. Maybe loving him wasn't brave, it was selfish. Maybe I was dragging us both into a fire neither of us could escape. But love doesn't surrender so easily. A week later, Dr. Levine made his move. It was after a long shift, exhaustion dragging me down as I changed out of my scrubs. He leaned against the locker beside mine, his smirk sharp as a knife. You know, Reed, it's funny how the chief suddenly trusts you with all his biggest cases. Almost like you're his favorite. I slammed my locker shut. If you've got a problem, take it up with him. Oh, I intend to, he said, his eyes glittering with malice. But let's be real, you're not half as subtle as you think you are. People are already talking. Imagine what the board would say if they knew the chief was compromising his judgment over a resident he's screwing. My blood ran cold. You don't know anything. He leaned closer, his voice a venomous whisper. I know enough. And unless you want me to ruin both of you, you'd better start thinking about how badly you want to keep this little arrangement. I shoved past him, rage boiling under my skin. But fear followed me out of the locker room, wrapping around my throat until I could barely breathe. I should have told Hart immediately. Instead, I tried to protect him, to shield him from the storm. But secrets have a way of rotting from the inside out. The next few days were torture. Levine watched me like a predator circling prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Hart grew more distant, his walls higher than ever, and I felt myself unraveling, thread by thread. Then came the night everything cracked. Another emergency case, an older man with a ruptured aortic aneurysm. It was high stakes, life or death, the kind of surgery that demanded perfection. Hart was lead, and I was at his side, our hands moving in perfect synchronization, our focus absolute. For hours, the world shrank to the sterile field, the steady rhythm of the monitors, the silent language between us. But as we neared the end, disaster struck. A vessel tore unexpectedly, blood surging faster than we could control. Alarms screamed, nurses scrambled, and for the first time, I saw fear flash in Hart's eyes. Clamp, he barked. I moved before I could think, adrenaline surging, hands steady where his faltered. For a split second, it was me leading, him following. Together, we fought tooth and nail, patching the rupture, controlling the bleed, dragging the patient back from the brink. When the monitor finally steadied, the room exhaled as one. Hart's shoulders sagged, his hands trembling as he stepped back. He looked at me, and for the first time in front of the whole team, his eyes softened. You saved him, he said, his voice raw. The words weren't just gratitude, they were confession, proof of what we both knew but couldn't say. And that was the moment Dr. Levine chose to speak. From the gallery above, his voice rang out, smug and poisonous. Touching, truly. Maybe the board will appreciate this little partnership as much as I do. The room froze, my heart plummeted. Hart's face went pale, then hard as stone. In that instant, I knew everything was about to change. The fallout came faster than I imagined. By morning, whispers had solidified into accusations. Levine wasted no time feeding the rumor mill, sprinkling half-truths and venom until speculation turned into certainty. By the afternoon, the chief of surgery, my chief, was summoned to a meeting with the hospital board. and I somehow was dragged in with him. The boardroom was colder than any or I'd ever set foot in. Senior doctors lined the table, their gazes sharp as scalpels. Hart stood tall at the head, every inch the unshakable leader they knew him to be. I sat several seats away, the youngest in the room, my heartbeat loud enough I swore they could all hear it. Dr. Myers, head of the board, adjusted his glasses. Concerns have been raised about inappropriate conduct. Specifically, that Chief Hart may be compromising professional standards due to personal entanglements with a resident. The words hung in the air, heavy and damning. Hart didn't flinch. His voice was calm, controlled. Rumors, nothing more. Levine, sitting smugly in the corner, leaned forward. With respect, sir. It didn't look like just rumors from where I was standing. My fists clenched under the table. I wanted to shout, to tear his lies apart. But one glance at Hart, his jaw locked, his eyes warning me to stay silent, and I forced myself to swallow the rage. Dr. Myers' gaze slid to me. Dr. Reed, do you have anything to add? You've been observed working closely with Chief Hart, perhaps unusually so. Every pair of eyes in the room pinned me down. My chest ached with the weight of their suspicion, their judgment. If I lied, maybe we could survive this. If I told the truth, everything burned. I opened my mouth, my voice rough. I work with Chief Hart because he demands excellence. He pushes me harder than anyone else here. If people want to twist that into something it's not, that's their problem. A few brows furrowed. A few whispers broke out. It wasn't the confession Levine wanted, but it wasn't the denial the board hoped for either. Hart's eyes flickered toward me, something unspoken passing between us. Gratitude, regret, maybe both. The meeting adjourned without resolution. The board would investigate further, which meant we were living on borrowed time. Afterward, Hart found me in the corridor, his expression unreadable. For a long moment he just stared, as if weighing whether to scold me or thank me. Finally he spoke. You shouldn't have defended me. It only made you look guilty. I don't care how I look. I shot back, my voice cracking. I care about you. Something in his eyes softened, just for a second. But then he turned away. Caring about me will destroy you, Reed. The words carved deep, but I couldn't let them end us. That night, I waited in the staff lounge, knowing he'd come. And when he did, when the door clicked shut behind him, the weight of the day crashed down on both of us. They're going to find out, I whispered, tears burning my eyes. Levine won't stop until he ruins us. Hart stepped closer, his voice low, trembling with a vulnerability he never showed anyone else. Then let him. If I have to choose between protecting my career and protecting what we have, I'll choose you. The air left my lungs in a rush. For the first time he had said it, what I had needed to hear all along. That I wasn't just a mistake. That what we had was real. We kissed like drowning men finding air, clinging to each other in the silence of the empty lounge. For a moment, I let myself believe we could survive this. That maybe love was enough. But hospitals don't grant happy endings so easily. 2 days later, the emergency call came in. A multiple vehicle crash on the interstate. Victims flooding the ER. Chaos spilling into every corridor. Hart and I were pulled into the OR for the most critical patient. A young mother with massive internal bleeding. It was the kind of surgery that demanded absolute focus, absolute trust. And yet, as we worked side by side, I could feel the tension coiling in the room. The nurses who glanced too long. The anesthesiologist who exchanged wary looks with Levine, who had inserted himself into the case just to watch. We couldn't slip. Not here. Not now. But as the operation stretched into its third hour, exhaustion gnawed at me. My hands shook, sweat stung my eyes, and then, in a moment of distraction, my instrument slipped. A vein tore, blood flooded the field. Damn it, Reed. Hart barked, grabbing control in an instant. My chest constricted with horror. I had jeopardized everything, the patient, the surgery, him. But Hart didn't falter. His hands moved with lightning precision, his voice steady as he directed the team. And somehow, against the chaos, he saved her. When it was over, when the patient was stable and transferred to recovery, Hart ripped off his gloves and stormed out. I followed, guilt crushing me. In the empty scrub room, he turned on me, eyes blazing. Do you understand what's at stake? You can't afford mistakes like that. Not here, not ever. I know, I shouted back, my voice breaking. But I'm human, and I'm in love with you, and every second I spend pretending otherwise is tearing me apart. The words hung in the air, raw and undeniable. Hart froze, his chest heaving. Slowly, his fury ebbed, replaced by something softer, something pained. He stepped closer, his hand trembling as it brushed my cheek. I'm in love with you too, he whispered. God help me, I am. The confession shattered what walls remained. I pulled him into me, holding on like the world could end at any moment, because maybe it already had. But outside that room, the whispers had grown into roars. And soon, no matter what we felt, no matter what we admitted, the hospital would demand its price. The board wasted no time. Within days, Hart and I were summoned again. This time not for questions, but for judgment. The accusations had been sharpened to a blade. Misconduct, favoritism, an inappropriate relationship jeopardizing patient safety. Levine's smug fingerprints were all over it. The room was suffocating. Hart stood tall, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes. I wanted to speak, to take the blame, but he cut me off before I could. If anyone's at fault, he said coldly, it's me. Dr. Reed has done nothing but prove himself under pressure. If you want someone to punish, punish me. My chest ached. He was willing to burn everything for me. But the board wasn't merciful. Suspension was on the table, investigation pending. Careers dangled by threads, lives rewritten by whispers. That night, we escaped to the rooftop, the only place in the hospital that felt like ours. The city stretched below us, lights flickering like stars. The air was cool, sharp with the scent of rain. They'll end me, Hart said quietly, leaning against the railing. Years of work gone. I stepped closer, my hand brushing his. Then let's walk away together. He turned, eyes wide. You'd throw away your career? I'd throw away everything, I whispered. If it means I don't have to throw away you. For once, his mask cracked completely. His hands cupped my face, his forehead pressed to mine. You make me believe in things I swore I didn't need anymore. Hope, love, a life outside of this damn hospital. We kissed under the pale glow of dawn, fragile and fierce all at once. For the first time, I didn't care who saw. But fate wasn't finished testing us. The next morning, chaos erupted. A critical patient, a senator with a ruptured brain aneurysm, was wheeled into the ER. Every camera in town swarmed the hospital. The surgery was impossible, the risks astronomical. And yet, Hart was called back. Suspension temporarily lifted under the pressure of politics. This is it, he murmured to me before scrubbing in. If I fail, they'll bury me. If I succeed, maybe they'll forget the rest. I'll be with you, I promised, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. No matter what happens. The surgery stretched into endless hours. Every second was a war. Veins tearing like paper, the brain swelling, monitors screaming. Hart was unshakable, but I saw the toll in the tremor of his hands, the shadow in his eyes. I stood beside him, matching his rhythm, lending him every ounce of strength I had left. At one point, the room spun with panic, the patient's vitals crashing, blood pooling faster than we could suction. My instincts screamed, my hands moving without thought. "Clamp here," I shouted. Hart looked at me, trusted me, and together we fought back the tide. And somehow, against all odds, the patient survived. When we stepped out of the OR, drenched in sweat, the corridor erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, nurses cried. Hart didn't bask in it. He just looked at me, his eyes saying everything he couldn't in front of the world. Later, alone, he finally spoke. "We did it." "No," I corrected softly. "You did." He shook his head, pulling me into his arms. "No, Reed, we did. Always us." The hospital couldn't erase what happened between us. The rumors didn't vanish overnight. But saving that patient shifted the tide. The board, desperate for good press, quietly shelved the investigation. Levine, furious at being sidelined, resigned before he could be pushed. And us? We stopped hiding. Slowly at first. Small things like not jerking our hands apart when they brushed in the hall, not pretending our glances were meaningless. Then bigger steps. Coffee shared openly in the cafeteria, evenings leaving together without shame. There were stares, whispers, a few colleagues who couldn't hide their disapproval. But there were also smiles, quiet nods of support, even congratulations whispered when no one else was listening. Love doesn't conquer everything, but sometimes it conquers enough. Months later, standing on the same rooftop where we once thought it would all end, Hart took my hand in his and said, "You made me believe again, not just in medicine, in life, in us." I smiled, my chest full, my future no longer something I feared. "Then let's keep choosing each other, every day, no matter what comes." We kissed as the sun rose over the city, the hospital behind us no longer just a place of secrets and sacrifice, but the place where we found the courage to be who we really were. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the cost. Because love was worth it. Always. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.